The secondary news in Georgia's recruiting class in 2024 looking a little thin. Dogs just lost safety commit Peyton Woodyard, who flipped to Alabama. So on the heels of that KJ Bolden announcement to FSU, people are wondering what's going on in the Dogs' back end of the defense.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of bad luck. Here's what I'll say about Georgia recruiting, right? Will Muschamp, Fran Brown, Kirby Smart, they're not dropping the ball. They're not getting outworked. They're not bad recruiters. But, you're after KJ Bolden, and he grew up a Florida State fan, big fan of Derwin James and Jalen Ramsey. All right, well, that's an L. I don't know what happened with Jalen Hayward. I couldn't tell you. Maybe they didn't like his length, a little undersized. I'm not 100% sure. I have a hard time believing, hey, just flat out, I'd rather be at UCF than Georgia. And if it is, it's probably because of the fact that Georgia's taken elite safeties in each of the last two classes. And then with Peyton Woodyard, I mean, you're always kind of rolling the dice when you're getting a guy from across the country like that. And not that he's staying closer to home, at least not just yet. He's flipped to Alabama. I think Georgia's fine at safety. I mean, listen, they would love to have KJ Bolden and Peyton Woodyard at the very least. They would love to have those two. But you look at next year, I don't think it's a given that Javon Bullard's gone. I think he's a fantastic player, but is he hey, I got to jump to the NFL guy? I don't necessarily think that. You got Malachi Starks coming back next year. Let's say Javon Bullard does leave. Well, you've got David Daniel Sisavon, you got Ja'Cory Thomas, you've got Justin Rhett, Jonell Aguero, and Kyron Jones. And not only that, but you got Chris Peel that could probably slide over and play safety. Our man Matt Godwin, our silver bullet, our wooden dagger, cross, garlic, holy water, all of it was on the board yesterday and talked about how safety is a position fluid, type position where you want to be able to cross train some guys and maybe bring some corners over. Georgia recruits big corners. Big corners slide over and play safety if they want to get onto the field. So I'm not worried about. I understand where fans are coming from, where you thought Georgia might get 3 elite safeties in this class. Hell, there was a time with the Phil Same kid that ended up at Florida where people were like, man, I think Georgia can get 4. That's probably never going to happen. But I understand, the frustration with missing on all 4 of those, but I don't think it's anything to worry about when it comes to Georgia's depth chart.
Yeah, the depth chart looking ahead without these guys in the class, makes me wonder, is this a transfer portal situation? And obviously there's a lot of time between now and signing day. Who knows who Georgia may be able to flip out of this 2024 group right now. One way or another, though, the guys that they are raising up right now in camp, this most recent class in 23, they got some dudes. And who's to say that someone like Ellis Robinson can't make a immediate impact as well when he shows up on campus?
Yeah, and I mean, like Jake was laying out there, they've got enough guys, by my count, assuming you lose Tyke, who's not a given either, Javon Bullard and Kamari Lassiter, puts them down to 14 in the secondary. And there's a lot of guys within that 14 that can play multiple positions. You're going to feel confident in one of your corners at least, if not multiple of them, getting some sort of starting experience, a lot of experience on the field. AJ Harris is another guy that I think could, maybe, be a little bit position fluid there. You got to consider Star in this as well. If they do lose, I mean, obviously moving Bullard from Star to safety opens the door for Tyke Smith, but it also opens the door for Jonell Aguero. And then, like you said, Jake, he could be a guy that, after getting a lot of reps at Star, maybe makes that move to safety. Ja'Cory Thomas is somebody that made some buzz early on. So they've got enough guys. It's also a position, and, for as crazy as it seems, with Georgia having the majority of its class wrapped up to this point, it's also a position that they can ID maybe somebody that has a really strong senior season, make a push for them, going into December, going into February and prioritize that because they've got so many other positions locked up.
Yeah, that's another thing is the whole idea that it's not over. Like Georgia's going to keep recruiting KJ Bolden. You guys had Rusty was on here Sunday night, I'm sure, talking just about that. Peyton Woodyard, I don't think Georgia will stop recruiting him. Probably a long shot, but flips, it's tough to flip them back. It doesn't happen as often. And I think there are going to be other guys they're going to go after. I mean, will they throw a flyer out for Phil Same or would they, ultimately it may help them recruit the position in next year's class better. That's always that's always if you fall short a little bit, maybe miss on a couple kids in one class, it's always a little easier to kind of be like, hey man, we didn't have a great class in front of you. That's why we need you real bad. And, a team that then has trouble selling immediate playing time to players at certain positions, has it to sell there at one position. And maybe you can go out and get you a guy like Malachi Starks. But I saw somebody post, I think it was either on Twitter or it was on our DawgsHQ message board there, the dog walk, that Georgia just can't get elite safeties. Guys, they've signed elite safeties in each of the past two classes. I mean, Jonel Aguero is a stud. I mean, he's borderline 5-star prospect, definitely in the elite blue chip, area. And then Malachi Starks. So, listen, I know missing out on Peyton Woodyard's not a great thing. It's not something you want to do. Not missing out on KJ Bolden's not either. But hey, let's talk in December when we know a lot more about the roster. You can focus on the fact that Georgia's 0 for 2 or 0 for 3, but I think you should also focus on the fact that, Georgia just signed a massive defensive back class in 2023, sorry.
Yeah, really, that's what it comes down to for me. KJ Bolden, his Florida State connection, and that's not done. But with everybody else, with Woodyard and whoever Georgia's having trouble landing, that playing time is a legitimate thing, especially in that group. Georgia rotates, and if you're good enough, you get on the field. But at a certain point, there's a ceiling. There are just so many guys. There's so many dogs. I don't blame people for picking other destinations, even though it seems like Georgia should be able to get whoever Georgia wants to get. You're going to bump your head on the elite guys in front of you at some point. And that's, I think, I don't have an actual number on this, but it seems like of all the position groups that Georgia has lost to the transfer portal, it seems like they've lost the most DBs since it opened up.
That feels right. And Wes, I want to speak to something you just said there, because I think you hit on something. And to back-to-back national championships will do this to you. Georgia should get who Georgia wants, right? I mean, I'm with everybody. Like, it makes, when you look at KJ Bolden, and this is no slight to the Florida State staff, but you look at KJ Bolden and you say, hey, you go to Alabama to be coached by Nick Saban, you go to Georgia to be coached by Kirby Smart. You go to Alabama, you're coached by Nick Saban and Tavares Robinson. You go to Georgia, you're coached by Fran Brown and Will Muschamp, Kirby Smart. I mean, listen, that's a fast track to the NFL, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to go do that? But a tale as old as time is these guys betting on themselves and wanting to be part of a build as opposed to be part of a stack, and I'm not saying that means they're going to go to Georgia and ride the bench or anything like that. I've said it. I think KJ Bolden could play right away at Georgia, just like Malachi Starks did. I'm a huge fan of that kid. But Kirby Smart built the Georgia program by selling the dream of building the Georgia program. That's how it happened. I mean, I know Kirby's a great recruiter and everything, but in 2017, he didn't – during that season when Georgia had most of its commitments heading into the early signing period, it wasn't like they had all this tradition of excellence and greatness and championships, just sitting there for people. He sold a dream to those guys, and it worked. And Georgia fans ate it up. So I think they needed to kind of look back and realize that, hey, Florida State's selling a build, and Auburn, they're trying to sell a build to these guys. Hey, be a part of a come up here, as opposed to being, and that's going to appeal to some kids. And listen, Georgia used to get kids from Alabama. They used to, Mike Bobo and company won a lot of recruiting battles against Kirby Smart. I'm talking about like Garrison Smith, Damian Swan, Malcolm Mitchell, Jay Rome, guys like Ray Drew, and we can talk about how successful they were at the next level or not. That doesn't matter. These guys were highly coveted football players. Georgia got them from Alabama when it made more sense to go to Alabama. That's where it was. And, you know, sometimes those kids don't want to go just be part of another, you know, another championship. It's not that they don't want to win. They just want to be a reason for the win as opposed to kind of stacking up, waiting their turn, stuff like that. There's just different motivations. And you know, it's not something, it's not just this craziness that somebody else is going to another program. It just appeals to them.